Kira Donovan stood at the massive viewport of Nexus Station, watching as the Galactic Council ships departed. Their engines glowed blue against the black of space, getting smaller by the second. They were leaving, all of them, and they weren't coming back. 15 years of her life, wasted. 15 years of careful words, polite smiles, and endless compromise, all erased by a single vote. "Ambassador Donovan," said a cold voice behind her, "your presence is required for final processing." She didn't turn around. She knew what the station officer would look like, tall, gray-skinned, with those large, judging eyes that all Vrexians had. She had once thought those eyes looked wise. Now they just seemed cruel. "I'm no longer an ambassador," Kira said. "The council made that very clear." "Indeed, which is why you must surrender your diplomatic credentials and communication devices." Immediately, Kira finally turned. The Vrexian officer stood stiffly, flanked by 2 security drones. Behind them, sitting patiently with warm brown eyes that never judged her, was Max. The golden retriever's tail thumped against the metal floor when she looked at him. At least they hadn't taken Max away. Small mercies. She unclipped the silver, pin from her jacket, the symbol of Earth's diplomatic corps, and dropped it into the officer's outstretched hand. Next came her communication band, her translator, and finally her personal AI assistant. The small device had been her link to Earth, to home. Now it would be deactivated, like her career. "Is that all?" she asked. "Your quarters have been reassigned. You are permitted temporary residence in Level 42. Section 8. Your presence in the diplomatic sector is no longer authorized." Level 42. The bottom of the station, where the air recyclers didn't quite work right, and the artificial gravity sometimes failed, where those who couldn't afford passage elsewhere ended up. "And how am I supposed to get back to Earth?" Kira asked. "The next human transport isn't scheduled for 6 months." The officer's face remained blank. "That is not the concern of Nexus Station administration. Earth is under quarantine by council decree. No ships are permitted to enter or leave human space without special authorization." Of course, they hadn't just removed her from her position. They had cut off her entire species from the galactic community. All because of a misunderstanding over some rocks in space. "The quarantine is temporary," the officer continued, though. His tone suggested otherwise. "Merely 300 council cycles until the human question can be revisited. 300 cycles. Almost 20 Earth years. By then, most of the people she knew back home would have moved on with their lives, forgotten her. You have 1 hour to gather your personal effects and vacate the diplomatic quarter." The officer turned and left, the security drones hovering. After him, Kira stood alone in the vast corridor that had once bustled with representatives from 100 worlds. Now it was empty. Word had spread quickly humans were persona non grata. No one wanted to be seen with Earth's failed ambassador, not no one except Max. The dog padded over to her, pressing his warm body against her leg. Kira knelt down and buried her face in his golden fur. "Looks like it's just you and me now, buddy," she whispered. Max licked her cheek once, then looked toward their quarters with purpose. He always seemed to understand exactly what was happening. The genetic modifications that had extended his lifespan to match a human's had also enhanced his intelligence, though the council scientists had always dismissed him as merely a primitive companion animal. Their quarters, soon to be someone else's, were painfully neat. Kira had never accumulated much during her years on the station. Everything she owned fit into 2 bags: clothes, a few books, photos of Earth, and Max's things. His bed, his favorite toy, his special food formulated for space station living. As she packed, her eyes fell on the window. From this angle, she could see the great spiral arm of the galaxy stretching out into the darkness. Somewhere in that vast swirl of stars was Earth, now cut off from the civilization she had tried so hard to join. The Galactic Council had voted unanimously. Every single species had agreed. Humans were too unpredictable, too emotional, too dangerous to be allowed free travel among the stars. The mining incident in the Vexilian asteroid belt had been the final straw a human colony ship, desperate for resources, harvesting minerals from what they didn't know was a sacred Vexilian site. No one had been hurt, but the damage was done. The Vexilians had demanded sanctions, and the rest of the council had been all too happy to comply. Kira had tried to explain, to make them understand that it was a mistake, not malice. But they didn't want to hear it. Some species had been looking for an excuse to isolate Earth for years. Ambassador? A quiet voice spoke from the doorway. Kira turned to see Zal, a young Tularian who had worked as her assistant. His blue skin looked paler than usual, his 4 eyes downcast. "Not anymore, Zal. Just Kira now. I'm sorry," he said. "What they did wasn't right. You deserve better. Humans deserve better." It was a small comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. At least one person in this vast station still saw her as a person. "Thank you," she said. "I brought you this." He held out a small device. "It's a local station communicator. It won't reach Earth, but you might need it. And some credits. Not much, but enough for a few weeks of food." Kira took the gifts, touched by the gesture. "Won't you get in trouble?" Zal shrugged his narrow shoulders. "Probably, but my people believe in fairness, even when the council doesn't." He left quickly, before she could thank him properly. Probably for the best being seen helping her wouldn't do his career any favors. An hour later, Kira and Max stood in a small, dimly lit room on level 42. The air smelled stale. The bed was hard, and a constant hum from the nearby air recyclers made her head hurt. But it was shelter, for now Max circled the room, sniffing each corner, then looked up at her as if to say, "This will do." Kira sat on the bed and pulled out the station communicator Zal had given her. With trembling fingers, she activated it and searched for news about Earth. There wasn't much, just the official council announcement of the quarantine. No reactions from Earth yet. Communications would be slow, limited to official channels only. "What are we going to do, Max?" She whispered. The dog jumped onto the bed beside her, resting his head on her lap. His warm weight anchored her, reminded her that she wasn't completely alone. Outside their small window, Nexus Station continued its endless rotation. Aliens of all shapes and sizes went about their business. Diplomats discussed the future of the galaxy. Traders made deals that would shape economies across thousands of worlds. And none of it included humanity anymore. The galaxy had turned its back on her. On all of them. But as Max's steady breathing synchronized with her own, Kira made a promise to herself. This wasn't the end. Somehow, someway, she would find a path. Back, for herself. For Max. For Earth. She just had no idea how. 3 months passed on Nexus Station. Kira and Max settled into a routine of survival. Their small room on level 42 remained bare, except for their few possessions. The credits Zal had given them ran out after the first month. Since then, Kira had taken odd jobs translating for traders, who dealt with the few remaining humans scattered across the outer systems. The work was irregular and paid poorly. Most aliens avoided her. They crossed to the other side of corridors when they saw her coming. Some spat insults. Others simply pretended she didn't exist, that Max never left her side. Each morning, they walked through the lower levels of the station, searching for work or affordable food. The dog's presence made things both easier and harder. Some aliens found him fascinating. A real Earth animal was rare in this part of space. Others were afraid of him, believing the rumors that Earth creatures carried dangerous diseases. Today, they sat in a small food stall, run by an elderly Gantare with 4 arms and kind eyes. He was one of the few who still served Kira without complaint. "Not good eating today, human Kira," he said, placing a bowl of gray protein paste before her. "Supply ships late again." "This is fine, Jonto. Thank you." She slid him her last few credits. Under the table, she slipped half her food into Max's bowl. The dog looked up at her, concerned. He knew she was giving up her share. "Eat," she whispered. "I'm not that hungry anyway." The lie didn't fool Max, but he ate carefully, watching her the whole time. The station's news screens flashed with images of the Galactic Council's latest meeting. Kira tried not to look, but couldn't help herself. The quarantine of Earth was still in effect. No changes, no appeals permitted. 15 more years at minimum before review. "You watch too much," Jonto said, wiping down his counter. "Makes sad eyes more sad." Kira smiled weakly. "I know. Old habits." A commotion at the entrance to the food court caught her attention. A group of Mroxians entered, tall, elegant feline aliens with sleek fur in shades of silver and black. They were among the most vocal supporters of Earth's quarantine. Their leader, a scientist named Vrex, had presented the case against humanity with particular venom. Kira lowered her head, hoping they wouldn't notice her. Max tensed beside her, a low growl building in his throat. "Quiet," she whispered. "We can't afford trouble." The dog fell silent, but remained alert, his eyes fixed on the Mroxians. Something about them always bothered him. Kira assumed it was their cat-like appearance triggering some ancient canine instinct. After finishing their meager meal, Kira and Max headed back toward their room. They took the long route, avoiding the main corridors where station security might hassle them. These days, any complaint against a human was taken seriously, no matter how minor. Halfway home, Max suddenly stopped. His ears perked up, and he turned his head toward a maintenance passage they had just passed. "What is it, boy?" Kira asked. Max whined and tugged at her pant leg with his teeth, something he did only when he wanted her to follow him urgently. "We should get back," she said. "It's almost curfew for non-citizens." But Max was insistent. He pulled harder then, ran a few steps toward the passage before returning to her, his meaning clear. "Follow me." "No." Kira sighed. In 15 years, Max had never steered her wrong. If he thought something was important, it probably was. "Fine, but make it quick." The maintenance passage was dimly lit and smelled of oil and recycled air. Max moved with purpose, nose to the ground, leading her deeper into the station's restricted areas. They passed through narrow corridors Kira had never seen before, climbing up service ladders and squeezing through access panels. "How do you even know where you're going?" she muttered, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. After 10 minutes of navigating the station's hidden pathways, they reached a section near the medical facilities. Max stopped outside a small storage room, pawing at the door and whining. Kira hesitated. "We shouldn't be here, Max. This is the restricted medical sector. If they catch us," Max barked once, sharply. It was the first time he had made a loud noise in public since their fall from grace. The dog's eyes were urgent, pleading. Okay, Kira said, looking around nervously. "But if we get thrown off the station for this, I'm blaming you." She pressed her hand to the door panel, expecting it to be locked. To her surprise, it slid open with a soft hiss. Max darted inside, and Kira followed, letting the door close behind them. The storage room was dark. Kira fumbled for a light switch and found none. She pulled out her small personal light and switched it on. What she saw made her gasp. Huddled in the corner, surrounded by medical waste and discarded equipment, was a Mroxian. The alien's silver fur was matted with something dark that Kira realized was blood. One arm hung at an odd angle. The Mroxian's eyes large and usually full of disdain when looking at humans were half closed in pain. Max approached the injured alien carefully, sniffing the air. The Mroxian hissed weakly, trying to back further into the corner. "Stay back, Earth creature," it said in a raspy voice. "I need no help from your kind." Kira recognized the accent. This was a female Mroxian, and a high-ranking one based on the quality of her translator. What was she doing hidden away in a storage room, wounded and alone? "You're hurt," Kira said, stating the obvious. "What happened? Where is your delegation?" The Mroxian laughed bitterly, then winced in pain. "My delegation? They are the ones who did this. My own kind decided I was ... expendable." Max whined and, ignoring the alien's protests, lay down beside her, his warm body offering comfort. To Kira's surprise, the Mroxian didn't push him away. Why would they hurt one of their own? Kira asked. The Mroxian's eyes fixed on her, filled with a mixture of pain and pride. "Because I discovered something they wanted kept hidden. Something about your species. About the vote against Earth." Kira felt her heart race. "What about the vote?" "It was manipulated," the Mroxian whispered, "by the archivists, the oldest species in the Council. They fear humans, but not for the reasons they claim." She coughed, and more dark blood stained her silver fur. "My name is Vila. I was chief xenobiologist for the Mroxian Confederation until 3 days ago. Now I'm nothing. A traitor to be eliminated." Max nudged Vila gently with his nose. The injured alien actually reached out a trembling hand and touched the dog's head. "Your companion found me," she said, wonder mixing with pain in her voice. "How?" "I masked my scent. I hid from the station's sensors." Kira looked at Max, who was now watching Vila with intense focus. "I don't know. He just ... knew you needed help." Vila's eyes began to close. "The archivists fear humans because of what makes you unique. Your empathy, your connection to other species. Like this one." Her hand rested weakly on Max's fur. "They believe it threatens ... galactic stability." Her voice faded as she lost consciousness. Max looked up at Kira, his eyes saying what she already knew. They couldn't leave Vila here to die. "This is crazy," Kira muttered as she began checking Vila's wounds. "She's one of them. They hate us. They're the reason we're stuck here." But Max just wagged his tail once, as if to say, "It doesn't matter who she is. She needs us ... and deep down, Kira knew he was right. Getting Vila back to their small room was not easy. The injured Mroxian was too weak to walk, and Kira had to support her weight. They moved through the maintenance tunnels, stopping whenever they heard voices. Max led the way, his ears constantly alert for danger. After an hour of slow progress, they finally reached level 42. Kira's arms ached from supporting Vila, and sweat soaked her clothes. The Mroxian drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words in her native language that Kira couldn't understand. "Almost there," Kira whispered as they approached their door. Max ran ahead to make sure the corridor was empty. Inside their room, Kira carefully laid Vila on the bed. The Mroxian's silver fur was still matted with blood, and her breathing was shallow. One arm was definitely broken, and she had deep cuts across her side. "I don't know enough about Mroxian biology to help her," Kira said to Max. "We need medical supplies and information." Max tilted his head, then walked to the door, looking back at her expectantly. "No, you can't go out alone. It's too dangerous." The dog whined softly, pawing at the door. "Fine," Kira sighed, "but I'm coming with you." They left Vila resting and ventured out again. This time, they headed toward the station's public information terminals. Kira had an idea. She could access basic xenobiology files without raising suspicion many travelers needed to know about. Different species medical needs dot at the terminal. Kira quickly searched for information on Roxian physiology. Max sat beside her, watching the screens with unusual interest. Roxian medical basics, she read quietly. Body temperature higher than humans. 3-chambered heart. Blood contains copper instead of iron, explaining the dark color. Accelerated. Healing when in deep sleep state. She downloaded the information to her personal device. Next, they needed supplies. The station's medical facility was heavily guarded, but Kira knew a Drelian trader who sold basic medical items. The Drelian's shop was tucked away in a corner of the trading district. The blue-skinned alien looked up as they entered, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Human Kira," he said. "Unusual to see you in my shop." "I need medical supplies," Kira said, "for treating cuts and a broken bone." The Drelian's eyes narrowed. "You look uninjured. Your animal companion also appears well. They're not for us. I see." The Drelian studied her for a moment. "These supplies are expensive. What do you offer in trade?" Kira had nothing of value, except the translator around her neck, her last link to her former position. Without it, communicating with most species would be much harder. But Vila needed help. "My translator," she said, removing it. "Official Earth diplomatic model. Worth 10 times what I'm asking for." The Drelian took the device, examining it carefully. "Acceptable. Wait here." He disappeared into the back of his shop and returned with a small package. Basic healing supplies. The bone setter is programmed for multiple species, including Roxian. Instructions included. "Thank you," Kira said, taking the package. "May I ask who requires these supplies?" the Drelian asked. "No, you may not." The Drelian's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Very well. Good luck, human Kira." When they returned to their room, Vila was awake, her large eyes watching the door as they entered. "You came back," she said weakly. "I thought perhaps you had gone to turn me in. Claim whatever reward they might offer." "We're not like that," Kira said, opening the medical package. "Now hold still. This might hurt." She worked carefully, following the instructions to clean and seal Vila's wounds. The bone setter was the most difficult part, a small device that needed to be positioned exactly right before activation. Max helped by keeping Vila calm, lying beside her and letting her grip his fur when the pain became too much. "Why is your animal helping me?" Vila asked after Kira had finished. "I am feline in appearance. Should it not consider me an enemy?" "His name is Max," Kira said, "and he doesn't judge by appearance. He knows you need help. That's all that matters to him." Vila's eyes studied Max with new interest. "Remarkable. Our records on Earth animals suggested they were simple creatures driven by instinct. Yet he seems to understand complex situations." "Max is special," Kira admitted. "He's genetically enhanced for intelligence and lifespan. But even regular dogs from Earth are more perceptive than most species realize." The Mroxian's hand gently stroked Max's head. A dog closed his eyes, enjoying the touch. "Before you lost consciousness, you mentioned something about the vote against Earth being manipulated," Kira said. "What did you mean?" Vila was quiet. "For a moment. The official reason for Earth's quarantine was the mining incident in the Vexilian asteroid field. But that was merely an excuse. The archivists had been planning Earth's isolation for years." "Why? What are they afraid of?" "Humans are unique in the galaxy," Vila explained. "Most species evolved alone, developing intelligence in isolation. But humans co-evolved with other species on your planet. You formed bonds with animals that shaped your development." Max's ears perked up, as if he understood they were talking about him. "The archivists believe this makes humans dangerous," Vela continued. "Your capacity for interspecies empathy is unmatched. You can form emotional connections with life forms completely different from yourselves. This threatens the galactic order they have maintained for millennia. Kira frowned. That doesn't make sense. How is empathy threatening? Control, Vila said simply. The archivists maintain power by keeping species separate, focused on their own interests. Humans naturally build bridges between different groups. You see past biological differences. It makes you unpredictable. Max suddenly lifted his head, alert. A moment later, Kira heard 2 footsteps in the corridor outside, stopping at their door. "Station security," called a voice. "Open by order of the council." Kira's heart raced. "They found us." "They found me," Vila corrected. "My people must have tracked me here." Max jumped off the bed and ran to the small ventilation shaft in the corner of the room. He pawed at it urgently. "I think he wants us to escape that way," Kira said, helping Vila to her feet. "Can you move?" "I must," Imroxian said grimly. Kira quickly removed the vent cover. The shaft was narrow, but big enough for them to crawl through. "Max goes first, then you, then me." The pounding on the door grew louder. "Final warning. Open or we will force entry." Max entered the shaft, looking back to make sure they were following. Vila went next, wincing as her injured body navigated the tight space. Kira followed last, pulling the vent cover back in place just as the door to their room burst open. They crawled through the dark shaft, guided only by Max's soft whines ahead of them. Kira could hear shouts behind them as the security officers discovered the open vent. "Where does this lead?" Vila whispered. "I have no idea," Kira admitted. "I'm following Max." "You trust your animal that much?" Kira smiled in the darkness. "With my life, always have." Max led them through a maze of ventilation shafts, taking turns that seemed random to Kira, but clearly made sense to him. After 20 minutes of crawling, they emerged into a large storage area filled with old equipment. "The decommissioned shuttle bay," Vila said, looking around. "This section was sealed off years ago." Max barked softly, tail wagging as if pleased with himself. "Smart boy," Kira said, scratching behind his ears. "But now what? Even if there are shuttles here, we can't exactly fly out." "The station would. Shoot us down immediately." Max's eyes seemed to say, "One problem at a time." And somehow, with the loyal dog at her side and an unlikely alien ally joining their escape, Kira felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. The decommissioned shuttle bay was vast and dimly lit. Old vessels in various states of disrepair lined the walls. Dust covered everything, suggesting no one had been here in years. "We need to find a working shuttle," Kira said, scanning the room. "And we need to figure out how to leave the station without being shot down." Vila leaned against a storage crate, still weak from her injuries. "Even if we find a functional ship, where would we go? The entire galaxy is hostile to both of us now." "One problem at a time," Kira replied, echoing her earlier thought about Max. "First, let's see what we're working with." They explored the bay, checking shuttles for any sign of functionality. Most were stripped of essential parts or damaged beyond repair. Max trotted alongside them, occasionally stopping to sniff at something. Interesting. After an hour of searching, Kira felt her hope fading. "Nothing here will fly," Max suddenly barked, drawing their attention. He stood by a small maintenance door at the far end of the bay, pawing at it excitedly. "What is it, boy?" Kira asked, walking over to him. The door was locked, but the control panel still had power. Kira tried a few common access codes without success. "Allow me," Vila said, joining them. She studied the panel for a moment, then entered a complex sequence. The door slid open with a groan of protest. "How did you do that?" Kira asked, impressed. "Mroxian override codes." My security clearance was quite high before I became a traitor. Vela managed a weak smile. Beyond the door was a smaller bay, separated from the main area. Inside sat a single shuttle, sleek and well-maintained compared to the others. "This is a Council diplomatic vessel," Vela said, eyes wide. "What is it doing here?" Kira circled the shuttle, checking for damage. "It looks functional. But why would they keep a working Council ship in a decommissioned bay? Perhaps for emergency use? Or—" Vela's voice trailed off as realization dawned. "Or for discreet departures when official channels are not desired." "You mean for secret missions?" Kira said, "or escapes." Max had already jumped up to the shuttle's entrance hatch, looking at them expectantly. Kira followed and found the door controls. To her surprise, they responded to her touch. The hatch sliding open smoothly. Inside, the shuttle was small, but elegantly designed. 6 passenger seats, a compact living area, and a cockpit with advanced controls. Everything was clean and appeared ready for use. "Can you fly this?" Kira asked. VEELA. The Mroxian nodded. "All xenobiologists are trained on multiple vessel types. But we still face the problem of station defenses. They will detect any unauthorized launch." Max suddenly ran to the cockpit and jumped into the pilot's seat. His paws pressed a sequence of buttons on the control panel. "Max, get down from there." Kira moved to pull him away, but stopped when the shuttle systems came to life. Lights flickered on, and the main display activated, showing a message. "Council Priority Protocol engaged. Clearance highest." "What did he do?" Vela asked, stunned. Kira Adia," Kira admitted. "Max, how did you know which buttons to press?" The dog just wagged his tail, then moved to another part of the control panel, pressing more buttons with surprising precision. "He's activating the pre-flight sequence," Vela said, watching in amazement. "And he's doing it correctly." A new message appeared on the screen. "Diplomatic departure authorized. Security override accepted." Kira stared at Max in disbelief. "That's impossible. How could he know the Council's security protocols?" Vela moved closer to Max, studying him with intense scientific curiosity. "Your companion is far more than he appears. This is not random button pressing. He understands the system." Max jumped down from the controls and went to Kira, sitting at her feet as if waiting for praise for a job well done. "Good boy," she said, automatically, still trying to process what had happened. "But I don't understand how you did that." "We should not question our fortune," Vela said, taking the pilot's seat. "The shuttle is ready, and the station will allow us to depart without interference due to the diplomatic override." "We should leave immediately." Kira hesitated. "Where will we go?" "I know of a small outpost in the Rylix Nebula where we can hide temporarily. From there, we can plan our next move." Max barked once, as if agreeing with the plan. "All right," Kira said, taking a seat. "Let's go." Vela's hands moved skillfully over the controls. The shuttle hummed to life, rising gently from the bay floor. The outer doors opened automatically, revealing the vast starfield beyond Dot. As they prepared to exit the station, alarm klaxons suddenly blared throughout the bay. Red warning lights flashed, and the doors began to close again. "They've discovered us," Kira shouted. VELA pushed the engines to full power. The shuttle shot forward, barely clearing the closing doors. Behind them, Nexus Station began to fade. As they accelerated away, "Station control to unauthorized vessel," a voice crackled over the comm system. "Return immediately or face destruction." "They won't fire on a Council diplomatic vessel," Vela said confidently. "The override should protect us." But seconds later, warning signals flashed across the control panel. "Energy weapons locking on," Vela reported, her confidence wavering. They're actually going to fire. The first blast rocked the shuttle, nearly, throwing Kira from her seat. So much for diplomatic immunity. The shields won't hold against a sustained attack, Vila said, her hands flying over the controls as she took evasive action. Max suddenly jumped up again, moving to a small panel near the floor that Kira hadn't noticed before. He scratched at it urgently. What is he doing now? Vila asked, struggling to keep the shuttle stable as another blast hit them. Kira knelt beside Max and found that the panel slid open at her touch. Inside was a strange device, unlike anything she had seen before. There's some kind of technology here, she reported, not standard council design. Max nudged her hand toward a blue button on the device. I think he wants me to activate it, Kira said. Station defenses charging for final strike, Vila warned. Whatever it is, do it now. Kira pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shuttle shuddered, and a wave of energy pulsed outward from the hull. The weapons lock warning disappeared from the display. They can't target us anymore, Vila said in amazement. It's some kind of advanced cloaking technology. Stealth mode engaged, the shuttle's computer announced. Archival protocols active. Archival? Kira repeated. As in, the archivists? This is their technology? Vila's eyes widened. This shuttle must belong to them. The oldest species in the galaxy, with technology far beyond the rest of the council. Max sat calmly, watching them both as if this had been his plan all along. Max, Kara said slowly, how did you know about this shuttle? How did you know about the cloaking device? The dog simply tilted his head, his eyes somehow seeming more intelligent than ever before. I think, Vila said carefully, that your companion has been keeping secrets. As the shuttle sped away from Nexus Station, now invisible to their pursuers, Kira stared at Max, the loyal dog who had been by her side for 15 years, who had always seemed to understand more than any animal should. What are you, really? She whispered. Max simply placed his paw on her hand, as if to say, you'll find out soon enough. 6 months passed since their escape from Nexus Station. The small outpost in the Rylix Nebula had provided temporary shelter, but they couldn't stay hidden forever. Rumors spread across the galaxy about a rogue human, a Mroxian trader, and a mysterious Earth animal who had stolen an archivist vessel. Now, they stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council itself. The circular chamber was filled with representatives from 17 different species. All eyes were on the unusual trio at the center. Kira Donovan, the former human ambassador, Vila, the Mroxian xenobiologist, and Max, the golden retriever who had changed everything. This emergency session of the council will come to order, announced the Vrexian chairperson. We gather to hear evidence regarding the status of Earth and the human species. Vila stepped forward, her silver fur gleaming under the chamber lights. Her wounds had long since healed, and she stood tall and confident. Honored representatives, she began, for too long, the truth has been hidden from this council. The quarantine of Earth was based on deliberate deception. I present to you now the evidence I discovered before my own people tried to silence me. She activated a holographic display showing complex genetic data. Humans did not evolve like the rest of us. Their development was uniquely shaped by their relationship with other species on their planet, specifically with canines. The council members murmured among themselves. Some looked skeptical, others intrigued. For thousands of years, Vila continued, humans and dogs evolved together in a partnership unlike anything seen elsewhere in the galaxy. This coevolution gave humans access to emotional intelligence that even the most advanced species had lost through their technological development. A tall, ancient-looking alien with pale skin and 6 eyes rose from the archivist delegation. These claims are baseless, it said in a raspy voice. A human was quarantined for violations of sacred space. Nothing more. Kira stepped forward, then explain why your people planted a cloaking device on a council shuttle. Explain why you manipulated the vote against Earth. The archivist's eyes narrowed. You have no proof of these accusations. Max, who had been sitting quietly beside Kira, suddenly stood. The entire chamber fell silent as the dog walked to the center of the floor. All eyes followed him, some curious, some wary. What happened next would be recorded in galactic history as the moment everything changed. Max sat down, looked directly at the archivist representative, and began to communicate. Not with barks or animal sounds, but through a series of precise movements, postures, and expressions that formed a complex language of their own. A Tlaxian council member, a species known for their telepathic abilities, gasped and rose from his seat. I can understand him, the Tlaxian said in wonder. He is communicating in conceptual imagery, in emotions and ideas that transcend spoken language. The Tlaxian approached Max and knelt before him. With the council's permission, I will translate. The chairperson, too stunned to speak, simply nodded. He says, the Tlaxian began, that dogs have always been more than companions to humans. They have been translators of emotion, bridges between different minds. While humans developed technology and language, dogs developed the ability to understand feelings across species boundaries. Max continued his silent communication, his eyes intense and focused. The Earth animal says that his kind was genetically modified to enhance abilities they already possessed. They can sense biochemical changes, read micro-expressions, and interpret emotional states with perfect accuracy. This is why the archivists feared the human-canine bond. It allows humans to truly understand other species in ways that cannot be controlled or predicted. The archivist representative stood rigid, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly in what might have been fear. He says, the Tlaxian continued, that the archivists have maintained power by keeping species separate and suspicious of each other. Humans and their animal companions threaten this order because they naturally build bridges of understanding. Max turned to look at each council member in turn, his brown eyes somehow conveying both warmth and challenge. The Earth animal offers himself as proof. He understands every species in this room. He can sense your emotions, your intentions, your truths, and your lies. And through their bond with creatures like him, humans can do the same. The chamber erupted in voices. Some council members shouted in disbelief, others in wonder. The archivist representative attempted to speak, but was drowned out by the commotion. The chairperson banged his ceremonial staff on the floor. Order! We will have order. When the room quieted, a new voice spoke. It was Zal, Kira's former assistant, now representing the Tularian delegation. What the Earth animal says matches our ancient texts, Zal said. They speak of a time when all species could understand each other through emotional resonance. We believed it was just myth, but perhaps this ability was not lost, merely forgotten by most of us. Max returned to Kira's side, sitting calmly as if he hadn't just changed the course of galactic politics. She placed her hand on his head, feeling the familiar warmth of his fur. We don't ask for special treatment, Kira addressed the council. We ask only for the truth to be acknowledged. Humans and Earth animals, like Max, offer something unique to the galactic community, way to bridge the gaps between different minds and different worlds. The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth's quarantine was lifted. More significantly, a new galactic initiative on interspecies communication was established, with humans and their animal companions at its center dot, as they prepared to return to Earth with a diplomatic fleet. Kira, Vila, and Max stood at the viewport of their shuttle, watching the stars. I still can't believe it worked, Kira said. After everything we went through, your companion is remarkable, Vila replied. My people have much to learn from Earth's animals. Max wagged his tail, looking up at them with the same loyal eyes. That had guided Kira through 15 years of diplomatic service. The same eyes that had spotted an injured alien in need of help. The same eyes that somehow knew exactly which buttons to press to save them when all seemed lost. You knew all along, didn't you? Kira asked him. What you were capable of. What it meant. Max simply leaned against her leg, his message clear without words. I was just being what I've always been. Your friend. Your bridge to understanding. Others. Kira scratched behind his ears, the gesture both familiar and new in its significance. The galaxy turned its back on us, she said softly, and you showed them why that was their greatest mistake. As Earth grew larger in their viewport, Max's tail wagged faster. Whatever adventures awaited them next, they would face them together, human, alien, and the dog who had changed everything, that not with grand speeches or advanced technology, but with the simple, profound gift that dogs had offered humans since the dawn of their shared history. The ability to understand another heart, no matter how different it might be from your own.